Hey everybody, Anish Majumdar here, career coach and fierce advocate for transitioning leaders everywhere. Happy that you're here, excited to share with you this video and training on 6 terrible hiring practices that can turn otherwise promising job opportunities into a complete and utter waste of time. I want to prepare you guys. I want to show you also some countermeasures that you can take on it, because a big problem that I see out there, right? I've been coaching people, especially high performers and executives, for the better part of 12 years now. Here's what I see. We all think of it in terms of bad jobs, good jobs. We think of it as bad employers, good employers. What we don't think about, though, is that sometimes you can have a wonderful job, a wonderful opportunity that is completely ruined by either the quality and caliber of the employer or the fact that they simply, for whatever reason, have zero idea in terms of what to do and how to handle the hiring process. Both of those things can completely tank you, right? And you want to be sophisticated about this and you want to be aware. So let me lead you through these. All right, guys, before we get into these tips, I would really appreciate it if you would just take a moment, pull up your LinkedIn profile, put in the word Anish, A-N-I-S-H, start putting in the word career. You're going to see my profile. Take a second, follow. I would love it. It would be huge for our visibility as a small business. And every day it's my priority to keep sharing career advice, job search advice, getting ahead advice that other people out there are not telling you. And most of the stuff you read out there is absolute, total, falsified garbage. All right, will not help you. So if you take a second here to hit that follow button, I'd really appreciate it. Let's get into it. Number 1, dishonest or deceptive job ads. Okay, I cannot stress this enough. If you are reading something that looks like it could belong in one of 50 companies, one of 100 companies, chances are overwhelming that they're not being honest with you. If you're reading something that describes a certain amount of, here are the major responsibilities, here are some of the strategic stuff, and then you go into interview 1 and you realize that has nothing to do with what the role is or what the responsibility is, that's a problem. That's dishonesty. That's what we're talking about here. Now, why do companies do this? In most cases, it's either one of 2 reasons. The problems that they're dealing with are so severe, right, that they don't want that information going out there. So they can't put in the job posting, hey, our marketing function basically disintegrated over the course of the last year. We're screwed. Somebody help us, right? So that's one thing, is that they'll avoid the truth of what's going on there in exchange for a very sanitized version that they can go into the job posting mode with. If that's the truth, then you asking some questions in that first interview about what they're really experiencing should start clearing that up. In fact, there should be an energy behind that, right? They want you to start getting into the truth when you're an actual candidate being considered, because they want to see who's going to be able to actually solve this stuff. Now, the other reason for these deceptive job ads is that the company just doesn't care enough about who they're hiring. And I hate to say that. You might say, oh my God, that's crazy. Why would you spend, 6 figures, sometimes 7 figures hiring someone and you don't really care about it? Well, a lot of times your hands are tied. I need someone in compliance, but I'm not going to be giving this person the authority over what we do. We know what we do, right? Or I need to hire someone who's in HR and manage that. But quite frankly, our dictatorial approach has been working pretty darn well so far. So let's just hire whoever the cheapest person is, put some posting out there, get them, but just sideline them right from the get-go. Don't ever tell them the truth about anything. And so if you ask real hard-hitting questions, and gosh, that is arguably the number 1 most important thing you can do in interview number 1. How honest are they being with you? Are they actually showing you what's right, what's wrong? No employer just hires someone to hire them. Okay, there is bleeding pain there. So if they're not willing to tell you that or even show you that on either job posting or interview 1, walk out. They're either taking advantage of you or they're not going to know what to do with you anyway. Number 2, BS salary games, right? Specifically 2. 1 is not showing the range if it's in a job ad. 2 is forcing you in that first interview to give a range. Give me a number. And first of all, if you hear something like, what's the lowest you'll accept, get out of there, okay? But if they say, hey, look, we got to have a number here, we got to do something, what I would simply suggest is do a little bit of research beforehand, figure out, broadly speaking, for this level of role in that region, what is the uppermost level. Then I want you to add in a certain amount, right? Let's say 15, 20, 30 grand to cover expenditures, other things, perks, whatever. And then have a big inflated all-in range. Not something that is hundreds of thousands of dollars outside of range. Something that is within 75 to 100K in that mode, right? Depending on where it is. Obviously, if it's a lower salary range, then maybe you want to be a little bit more conservative, but you want to give yourself some padding, a significant amount of padding. If the salary range that you see is 250 to 275, you should not be putting out the words 250 or 275 should not be popping out. It's in the 300s. Do you see what I'm saying? Maybe even mid or high 300s. You don't need to tap it in. You need to say it's all in, it's fully loaded, something like that. And then from that, you can divvy it up. If they want to divvy it up right then and there, forget about it. You're not interested in talking about that until you know, hey, what is the role? What are all the details that I need to know? Anything beyond that, they're not psychologically prepared to get to have that salary discussion. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Number 3, mind-numbing assessments before the first interview, before the second interview, before the third, especially before interview number 1. The only reason that they would give you assessments before the first interview is because they're trying to weed out people. But the thing is, if they're even using job postings or any public forum, the whole process of applying for the job should be the weeding out process, right? So if you're giving me a second weeding out process, this tells me something about the way that you see me. This tells me something about the way that you see all of your job applicants. And it's not a positive thing that I'm mentioning here, right? It's not a good look when people force you to do that. I've even worked with people who have told me that after the second interview, which, by the way, just so you understand, in most hiring, okay, by the time you get to the second interview, it's you and maybe 2 or 3 other people, right? That's the way that it should be, right? So if they're still asking you interview 2, interview 3 for an assessment, you've got to stop. And you've got to ask, where are we in this? What's the process like? I would have no problems with asking, especially in interview 2, where are we with the other candidates? What are the next steps? What can I offer here? What are the vulnerabilities that you see? Treating this person like an ally. What would you do if you were in my position? I want to talk about this stuff. I don't hear candidates talking about that because they're afraid of what they're going to hear. But if you don't ask the question, almost always the answer is going to be the worst case scenario. You've got to ask. You've got to hold that accountability. And you've got to say no to these assessments, especially if they are a waste of time. If they are low level, if they're insulting, you scoring 100 on 100 is not really going to help you, right? All it's telling them is that you're willing to do anything. So really be careful about this, right? Here's another one. Endless interviews. As I said, anything after 2 should most likely be an offer, not just in terms of job posting land. Me and my team, we work with clients. We teach them an end-to-end methodology for quickly generating their own dream opportunities outside of job postings. Even that, after 2, number 3 is almost always the offer because there's only so much information preliminarily that you guys can talk about, only so much vetting you can do. At a certain point, there's nothing else that we can do than get started on the mechanics of actually implementing this, right? So you've got to know that line yourself, right? And you've got to ask yourself, what did we accomplish in that second interview that we didn't accomplish in number 1? And if you're not happy with those answers, don't go into that until there's been at least an email back and forth that establishes or reestablishes a greater degree of accountability that gives you a clear sense that I'm not going to be spending 5, 6, 10, 12, 14 hours of unpaid time to prepare for this again. I'm going to focus on these 1 or 2 things. And if we can address it without the meeting, so much the better. But definitely be aware of this because it actually shocks me how many people out there. I recently did a poll asking, hey, how many interviews is too many? And I actually had people telling me that it's perfectly defensible for a company to interview you 7, 8, 9, 10 times. And by the way, if that drives you absolutely crazy, I've got a link for you in just a second that will help you get out of that forever. Here's the last one, okay? The overall feeling that you are an inconvenience to them. This is not something that I can easily just say, hey, interview 1, this happens, interview 2, this happens. But you know it when it happens to you, right? When that person screened you, what kind of an attitude was that? When that recruiter called you up, right? Are they representing a good recruiter? We'll prep you on the good areas to talk about. We'll tell you what to steer clear of. We'll give you tips in terms of, hey, don't highlight that in your brand, highlight this. Or they're a shill. In which case, the only advice they're going to give you is to be a better controlled sort of candidate, basically. No good advice whatsoever. That's called being an inconvenience. That's feeling like an inconvenience. When we hire, companies should be putting their best foot forward. They should be always willing to show you the best of who they are, the best of what they represent. This is their word of mouth that's going to be extending out from all of these candidates out into the wider world. If you see the opposite and you see annoyance, you see lack of accountability, they're not getting back to you, or they'll just drop you like a hot potato unless you remind them, this is disrespect. And if you think this is going on when they should be putting their best foot forward, just try to imagine what it's going to be like when you're actually working with them. Not a pretty situation. Look, guys, if you are tired of replying to job ads and dealing with that, I'm going to tell you, my personal attitude is everyone should grow out of that. Everyone should graduate out of that. You know, I have a 3-year-old. We were so proud he graduated out of diapers. Well, I think job ads are the diapers of people's careers. It's time to just stop, you know, potty train yourself. Here's the link. Tap the hidden job.market/ASAP. If that link is still live, you're going to see our masterclass that we've put together. It'll teach you that full methodology right now over the course of 60, roughly 70 minutes. Have your resume and LinkedIn profile up. If it's not there or you see a 404 error message, we've pulled it. Thanks, guys.